All right, so we've talked about our vocal mics and vocal chain and all that and how we get there, but now we're on the desk. We're going to actually put vocals through it and make some sound with it. So the first thing is to figure out how to gain the thing up.
Yeah.
So Lee, like what's the definition of gain? Like how do we even start?
What gain is?
You know what we're talking about, right?
The knob on the top.
The knob. Okay. Here's the deal. This is why we have Jeff, right?
Yes.
Jeff, help us out. What's the definition of gain?
So gain is a measure of the ability of a circuit to amplify
Hold it. How do you?
Are you reading?
Yeah. What's the deal,
Kind
man?
of.
What are you doing?
Well, Wikipedia is helpful, but actually it is a little bit helpful. Gain is a measure of the ability of a circuit to increase the power or amplitude of a signal from the input to the output, usually by adding energy converted from some sort of power supply to the signal. So basically what we're talking about is a microphone is a transducer. It's taking the sound of an analog signal, converting it to...
That's me.
That's you, your voice. Converting it through the diaphragm to an electronic signal, going down that cable. But the problem is that signal is super, super low,
Yeah.
especially in a dynamic mic.
Yeah.
So it has to hit something that can add voltage to amplify the signal. That's why we call it a preamp or a preamplifier, because it's amplifying the signal before it gets to the console.
You know what?
Learn something new every day.
I think this conversation is going to be really helpful for you and I. For the first time, I think I understand gain.
Yeah.
All right, so if we're going to take that and get this where we can actually hear it, so, I mean, there's a difference between gain and volume, too. So we're gaining up a mic where it's actually going to respond well to the input source,
Right.
correct?
Right.
And volume is more of like the fader volume, bringing the fader up.
That's way later.
Right.
Volume comes last.
Right,
But the fader is another form of gain staging,
right.
because there are several ways to add gain throughout the signal path. So people think, we can add it through output gain on a compressor or the attenuation that a fader provides.
Right.
But I think the way that you approach gain in your setup
Yeah.
is helpful because first and foremost is the input signal that the console receives in the first place.
Right. It's the very first link in the chain. No matter what
Right.
happens anywhere else, you can't move gain later down the insert path. It just doesn't work like that. So for us, it's the most important thing. And whether it's a vocal mic or it's a keyboard or anything, we gain up the input signal to a level that would be somewhere close to analog zero. And on most digital consoles, that can be different, how your metering is structured and
Right.
things like that. But we leave it at the same level on every input for a couple reasons. So a volunteer knows that if microphone A is metering around -12 on our console, then that's great. And then every input down the line will be at around -12. It's so that the rest of the file works correctly.
Right.
Okay, so follow me.
Okay.
Sends, compression thresholds, gates thresholds, everything else that's happening past the gain structure
Dependent on that.
is dependent on
Yeah.
this. So if this is 10 dB off, then the thresholds will be 10 dB off. Then the sends to wedges would be 10 dB off, and so on and,
And if
so
you're doing a
forth.
monitor mix sending from this console, it's all stuff.
Exactly.
Right, okay. So if you're going to add gain,
Yep.
simple gain to the console, it's pretty simple.
It is. So our gain, we have it on a digital slider here, or we can turn a knob, and you can see the input is really, really low right there. I'm talking in the mic, and you just want the average signal, again, average, to just be somewhere around analog zero. It's going to be somewhere in there on this console. So you still got room for peaks before you clip, but your average signal is somewhere around -12, -10, -18. Again, your console would be different.
So the input signal is robust enough that when you apply other things to it, they actually have an effect. Because some people look at gain as, I'm going to set all my faders at zero,
Yeah.
and then just crack the gain knob until it sounds loud enough. The problem with that is that it's not consistent at all throughout the signal, or throughout the
Right.
channels.
Yeah.
Right.
And there's not, usually you're just turning up noise when you're pushing up the fader, because the signal
Exactly.
itself is not robust enough.
Yeah, for me, I would choose to attenuate your level somewhere else. If your PA is too loud, that's not a good reason to turn the gain so far down that it degrades the rest of the signal
Right.
past the
Right.
preamp.